Oh, I should have said this during the night part, but I didn't.
You can always punch it back in.
I'm on a roll. Yeah, but time-wise...
We could insert a joke about how Bush did 9/11.
Insert...
Welcome to I'd Buy That for $1, a podcast about inexpensive, common, and underappreciated records that are waiting to be rediscovered. I'm your host, Sean Hartman, and guys, I have a secret to tell.
I would like to respect your autonomy in keeping the secret if you wish.
Well, okay, so I have a secret to tell.
Sounds like he wants to let it out.
It's from my electrical well. I'm leaving out the whistles and bells, so the room must listen to me podcast vigilantly. My name is Hartman, one note, spelled H-A-R-T.
Man, you went deep with your reference there, Sean.
I sure did. I'm assuming one of you got the reference.
Oh, I got it. Maybe we'll even explain it later.
Maybe we will.
Wow. Well, I'm co-host Jeremy, guys, and I'm madder than mud.
Oh, no.
Is your name Mud?
No, that's an expression everybody knows.
Madder than mud?
Yes. And it's because Tiffany done went and started a vinyl podcast about cheap vinyl records.
Like the I Think We're Alone Now singer Tiffany?
Yes.
Who does she think she is?
She's just stealing everybody's ideas.
Do you think Tiffany's listened to our podcast?
I hope so.
We haven't covered a Tiffany record. I have no sense of how much they go for.
Fair.
She's kind of right. She was popular sort of right on the cusp when CD or, records, cassettes, CDs. She's kind of right into that transitional period too.
Yeah. She's a Gato Barbieri head, though.
Tiffany?
Yeah, so she probably listened to that episode.
That makes sense.
Well, I am co-host Peter Cook, and guys, I didn't come up with anything.
You didn't come up with anything. These are all real titles, Peter.
Well, I don't have anything to brag about. I ain't flexing.
All right.
Just talking about Flex.
Just talking about flex.
Well done. Well, that's what we're talking about this week. Lene Lovich, Flex, from 1980. And before we talk about it, I'm going to play it, because that's how I like it to be done. And we're going to start with the first song, Bird Song, Side A, Track 1. those wild vocalizations at the beginning of the track were, in fact, Lene doing or mimicking bird sounds. But I think that track, I wanted to just go full in on her wild vocal delivery right out of the gate, so you know what you're getting into.
Well, so did she, because she put it as the first track on this record.
Yep.
Not holding back. Yeah, you know what you're getting into pretty quickly there. Well, I should say, once you start to get the direction. It starts out like you don't know just how weird is this going to be. And then it really does. There's some groove to it, though.
Yeah.
And a little bit of reggae influence.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes a lot of strange places. The first time you listen to the song, it's like, okay, strange ambient intro with some weird vocals, and then it takes this kind of like quirky new wave turn, and then before you know it, you're like listening to this like gothic dark synth track. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting good or just interesting?
Yeah, interesting in a very good way. I said that, I was like, it made it sound like I didn't like it.
It's interesting. It was really interesting.
Yeah, I can see they're trying some things here.
Yeah, I've heard that that comment enough to know what interesting can mean without any other qualifiers added.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe I said that because this album has been kind of a journey for me. Like, the first few times listening to it, I was like, I don't know if this is really for me. And then every time I played it, I liked it a little bit more. And yeah, I'm fully on board now, for the record.
I think we've had this happen a few times lately, highlighting albums that are like quite challenging right out of the gate. And there's just a lot going on, and it takes a few listens to even like make sense of what's going on.
Which is funny because that's a formula for many classic albums, ones that initially don't click. I've been, I'm sure that like the first time I listened to OK Computer, it didn't make a lot of sense to me back in 1997, 98, whenever I first heard that. Obviously went on to be one of my favorite albums of high school. But it's funny how still we all know that sometimes your favorite albums you don't like the first time you hear them, yet it's still easy to forget that sometimes when hearing something for the first time and just being like, I don't know what to make of this. I don't know if I like this, but you don't know if it is going to ever click. And that's because sometimes things still don't. If you don't like them initially, you never come around to them. But something like this where it's so unique that your brain just isn't sure how to connect all the different parts. I think that's what's going on there out the gate.
Yeah, it's a combination of that, and I think it's kind of Lena's personality to be unrelenting in what she's doing. I kind of saw some parallels there with like Yoko Ono, where like she has a vision, she's going to follow it, and it doesn't really matter if you are going to get it or not.
Yeah, I almost put Yoko Ono as one of the recommended similar albums for later, so it's good to get that comparison in there.
Yeah, I kind of felt inclined to just immediately try to start comparing this to previous albums we featured, which there are a few that come to mind, but maybe I'll wait until we get to that section, and then if you don't mention them, then I can add a few.
Don't spoil it right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Something to look forward to.
It is wild, I will say. I'm standing here across from Jeremy, and the record is on the turntable, seeing the Stiff imprint on this, the label of this, the Stiff Records, because that's the label. I don't think we've ever had an album that was on that label previously featured.
Really? I thought we've had at least one, but maybe we've just kind of mentioned it in passing.
Yeah, I'm not terribly even doing research for this. I didn't look too much into the record label.
If it ain't Stiff, it ain't worth a F. Because I think I don't know why I didn't swear, but we can swear, but I don't want to.
No need.
Well, for people not familiar with Stiff Records and why we are saying that's maybe a little bit unexpected for this album, that was a 70s UK label that kind of specialized mostly in like pub rock and punk rock. They had The Damned, Nick Lowe, Elvis Costello. But they definitely had some like more forward-thinking, experimental, new wave type stuff. So it's not completely a strange pick for that label.
I think most record labels will branch out and not just stick to one thing.
Yeah, and there's some definite like punk, post-punk energy going on in this album for sure.
Oh yeah.
Agreed. Well, do you guys want to learn about Lene? Learn how this ended up on Stiff Records?
Let's learn all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Lene was born under the name Lili Marlene Premilovich on March 30th, 1949 in Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah, that was a surprise right out of the gate in her bio.
Yeah, Michigander. Though her mom moved her to England. Her mom was from England, and her father was from Yugoslavia, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, Eastern Europe. And her mom moved the daughters back to England because in the Wikipedia it said he had health problems, but I noted in an interview with Lene, it sounds like he had alcohol problems and was abusive and terrorized her mom. And
it sounded like they lived, I couldn't find exactly where in Detroit they lived, but she said it was a kind of a violent part of the city. And so for her, like England moving there just seemed like something out of a fairy tale by comparison to living in Detroit at that time.
Yep. So she more or less grew up in England. She doesn't retain much Midwesternness, I would say.
But she was like on the brink of her teenage years so she did spend a good chunk of her childhood in Detroit.
Yeah, that's true. I think it was 13 she moved to England. So.
Yeah.
But she met guitarist and songwriter Les Chappell in England as a teenager, and they became like lifelong partners, both musically and romantically. They ran away together to London to go to art school, where Lene studied sculpture and painting, and from what I could tell, didn't do music really before this time.
There's definitely some art house vibes with her whole thing, though.
Yeah, and her braids, if you like look at videos of her or pictures, she often has these braids, which she actually started in art school as just a way to keep her hair out of the clay she was working with.
It became one of her trademarks.
Yeah. It was at this time she kind of exploded creatively. She started playing saxophone. She was dancing in cabaret clubs and worked as a go-go dancer. She started performing with local theater groups. She then was touring with a West Indian soul band and even recorded screams for horror movies.
Yeah, that whole paragraph of her Wikipedia page listing all of the different things she did during that time was amazing. I thought about doing an intro where I just like listed a variation of like every single thing that she did during those few years.
Yeah.
Would have been a repeat of your Rod McEwen intro.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and if you watch her perform later on, you can like see all these influences. She has some like wild vocal things she's doing, which you could maybe started with the screams. There's a lot of theatrical stuff. There's some crazy dancing she does.
I got a little bit of a Diamanda Galas, the avant-garde musician and vocalist vibe from some of her stuff. A little more reined in than Diamanda typically is, but I know that Diamanda Galas also performed recorded screams for horror films, like Wes Craven's The Serpent and the Rainbow comes to mind. So more parallels I'm drawing as you're saying this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were saying she was born in 1949, so that makes her about 30 at the time of recording this album.
That's correct.
Yeah. At first I was a little thrown by that because to me it feels like there's more of a youthful, like younger energy to this. But at the same time, we're talking about how like rich this album is and how varied the influences are. I guess that kind of makes sense as someone coming from like a little bit more of a place of experience, able to put all these different ingredients in.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff to incorporate into one musical gumbo, if you will.
I wasn't going to go there, but if you insist.
We only let we let Jeremy go there now. Decide when that's coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and if she was releasing this album in 2019, I could believe that she could be like in her early 20s with that much musical experience, because nowadays people are like fully formed by the time they're 17, 18 years old. So,
very normal. Thank you, society.
Used to be you'd go out and play a whole bunch of garbage shows out of tune, and there'd be documentation of that for the rest of your career, and put out a few albums that sound like crap, and then finally you'd get it together, and you could see a band grow. Now artists just arrive fully formed, like they're from another planet.
That or the computers just fix all the errors now.
Yeah, or that.
Musically, Lena was influenced by Slavic folk music and Motown, which you can hear bits of in this. There's a lot of like Eastern European melodies kind of in there, and then just some like catchy Motownness kind of mixed in. That also, to me, was a little bit of a parallel with some of Yoko Ono stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Still like great appreciation for pop hooks, even though there's a whole lot of avant-garde experimentation happening as well.
Yeah, and for Lena, it's literally her upbringing. She grew up in Detroit and had this father from Yugoslavia, so those were what she was exposed to when she was young.
Yeah, she said she didn't really grow up in a house full of a lot of different kinds of music. They didn't have many records at home, and she was pretty limited. I think she branched out once she got out there on her own and started discovering things and was ready.
Yep. Yeah, so she began to break through in the music world in 1977 when she wrote lyrics for Chirone's Supernatural, which is not a name I expected to see in this biography.
Yeah, I feel like we mentioned her briefly on that episode. Yeah, it was fun to make that connection again.
Yeah, she's come up a few times in the past, maybe through recommended artists as well.
Mm-hmm.
From there, she was playing in a funk band called The Diversions. And while that was happening, she had also recorded an inventive cover of I Think We're Alone Now, the Tommy James and the Shondells song.
Also Michigan represent. Niles, Michigan.
And a DJ at the BBC passed it along to Stiff Records executive Dave Robinson, who then signed Lena.
Not the basketball player.
Not David Robinson.
Yeah.
Spurs represent.
And that also the whole Tommy James I Think We're Alone Now thing ties us to Tiffany.
Yeah, and that's funny because I was telling a friend, they were like, what are you doing this week on the podcast? And I was like, Lene Lovich, she did this cover of I Think We're Alone Now, and they were like, by Tiffany? And I was like, wait, Tiffany did that song? Which is funny because when I was listening to the Lena version, I was like, man, this is kind of trippier than I remember. And then it all like came together like, oh, I just remember the Tiffany version. I probably never heard the Lena version before now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it wasn't a terribly big hit for her, right?
For Lena, no. For Tiffany, it was the biggest hit she had in her whole career.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, at the beginning, as I was referring to her as I Think We're Alone Now, Tiffany, I was like, is it wrong to identify her by a cover? But no, that's what people know her for.
Yeah. Yeah, it was her biggest hit, I found out when I looked it up, because I was like, oh, Tiffany did that? And then I was like, oh, of course Tiffany did it. Not a big Tiffany fan, if you guys couldn't tell.
Well, I think you were born in 87. That's right about the time that was a hit, too.
Yeah, I was 8 months old when that came out.
Okay,
so.
yeah.
Well, let's get to another song. I want to play, since we're talking covers, a cover Lena did for this album, The Night, which was originally done by
The Four Seasons.
The Four Seasons.
I did want to note before we listen to this clip that the chord progression in this song reminds me a lot of Brenda Russell's A Little Bit of Love, which I actually can't compare it to, however, the sound of the original Four Seasons version of this went. I didn't look into that. But there's something about the major third chord that's right in the middle of this chord progression that sounds identical to the Brenda Russell A Little Bit of Love, which helps. A major third chord kind of is slightly off from what should be. A third is typically a minor chord in a chord progression, and a major third adds a note that elevates it just a little bit, makes it sound just a little more interesting or draws attention to it. So I just took note of the similarities, and that album, the Brenda Russell song, would have come out the year before this.
All right, well, I'll be listening for Brenda while we play this track.
All right. So this is The Night.
The Night, Side A, Track 4.
I say before I go forever. Be sure of what you say.
Could either of you hear a similar cadence to A Little Bit of Love in that?
I don't remember that song.
If I tried really hard, I could hear it, but there is absolutely no way I would have ever made that connection without you. So
that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Those little subtleties. But like I said, I don't know if it wasn't what it was actually an influence on this, especially realizing this is a cover of an older song. But well, I mean, there was also the reggae thing going on very clearly in there.
Yeah, I mean, It sounds like everything was an influence on this album. So
yeah, that one. Yeah, I like the feel of that track though. I really like when these songs start driving, and that one does as it goes.
Yeah, there's a comparison in my mind, but I don't want to make it and spoil one of Sean's recommended albums.
Let me guess. Marianne Faithfull.
That's the one.
I didn't put that down, although that was a contender.
Oh, wow.
Well, now I'm spoiling what I was going to suggest. So
yeah, check out our Broken English episode. Similar dark vibes, some wild vocal delivery.
Yeah, the reason I didn't put that one on is I just felt like that kind of damaged element to Broken English didn't really feel quite as present on this album. Like the energy is just different, but you can make a lot of comparisons for sure, and right around the same time too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was very much right around this time. R.I.P. Marianne Faithfull.
Oh, yeah, recently passed. So back to Lena. Stiff Records puts out I Think We're Alone Now. Les, her musical partner, writes a song just to like fill the B-side of it, which is a song called Lucky Number, which became Lena's biggest hit. It was number 3 on the UK singles and was a bigger hit than I Think We're Alone Now for Lena.
How did Tiffany's version do?
Number 1s around the world.
And from what I understand, that was a somewhat prominent pre-MTV music video.
Yeah, she started in with music videos early, which kind of makes sense with her, like, theatrical background. She already has
the art school vibe.
Yeah, she's already got a lot of these influences, so it was not a big leap for her to be like, let's put it on video. Both of those songs were featured on Lena's first album, Stateless, which came out in 1978, and also produced another hit for her, Say When, that was number 20 in the UK charts. I don't know if any of her stuff actually charted in the US, though, which is probably why this is a bargain bin album.
Yeah, and this is the follow-up to that. This is her second album.
Yeah, this is the second album. She recorded it in 1979, came out very beginning in 1980 in January. The record label gave her an actual budget to record this. If you listen to her first album, Stateless, it's like pretty rough from an audio production standpoint. There's times I was listening and like, this sounds like it was a home studio recording or something. So this is her first album with like a real budget in proper recording studios.
Yeah, and she got some name producers working on this, including Alan Winstanley, who would go on to co-produce in 1990 They Might Be Giants album Flood, including the song Birdhouse in Your Soul that Sean referenced at the top of the episode.
There it is.
Beautiful. In my notes for Alan, the only albums I wrote down that he produced were Dexy Midnight Runners, Touraye.
Yeah, that's the one
That's a big
with
one.
Come On Eileen on it.
Yeah. And I also wrote down Bush's 16 Stone.
I saw that. Yeah.
Also, before he became a producer, he was an engineer on the track Orgasm Addict by the Buzzcocks.
Okay. That UK punk stuff that's kind of adjacent. This record seems adjacent to. I was interesting because I saw that 16 Stone, which, a mid-90s album by Bush, I guess they intentionally wanted like a British producer because they felt their sound was almost too American, and they thought that would help give it a little more of a UK feel.
Oh, that makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. So to clarify, Lena and Les actually produced this album, and Alan and Roger Beckerian did the engineering. They helped them with the technical side of it, but then Lena and Les had more control of the actual arrangement and sound.
Yeah, it feels like she is in control of her artistic vision here.
Yeah. Yep. And for Roger, I wrote down that he worked with Elvis Costello and Squeeze, which kind of tracks with how this sounds from an engineering standpoint.
Definitely. There is one thing I've got to bring up here, Jeremy.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like this would have been a perfect selection for a Halloween episode, and there's not enough of those out there, so I'm a little upset that you're pulling from this tiny, tiny well.
I'm sorry about that, Sean. It does have creepy, gothic kind of vibes, which one interesting fact about it, the cover has her in like a creepy looking room, and she's like doing some weird stuff with strings, and American Christians assumed there's some kind of witchcraft going on.
Yeah, it was like initially banned a little bit, right? Because the rumors were growing that it was like a satanic album cover.
Yeah, they were trying to get it banned for witchcraft. What's actually going on there, Brian Griffin did the photography for it. He's a pretty famous dude. He did covers for Depeche Mode, Susie Sue, Echo and the Bunnymen. But Lena is inside a fermentation tank, like from the Guinness beer factory. And she has some like pucks tied to strings.
Yeah, like hockey pucks.
Yeah, like hockey pucks. And it looks kind of witchy, but she was just going for surreal. Yeah, people drew their own conclusions there.
Yeah, she's got resting witch vibes. That's just how she is naturally.
That's kind of true. I was watching some video interviews with her, and I sort of got like pulled in and just kept watching more and more interviews with her, because she has this this thing that I've seen like a few times before, where they kind of have this like wide-eyed spiritual, like connected to some outer force beaming through them vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't know, it's like sort of psychedelic. At times it's hard to tell if she's like playing with the interviewers a little, or if she's just really out there.
Yeah, watching music videos of hers, some of the intensity of her eyes, it was actually very similar to Kate Bush, some of her early videos.
Yeah.
That it's theatrical, and I don't know if it's sort of ineffable to explain exactly what is going on, but
Yeah, it's hard to put your finger on, which is like the music.
yeah, which I suppose is what makes it interesting and intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
But yeah, between all that and writing the lyrics to Chirone's Supernature, which was a previous Halloween pick, we're just giving everybody a taste of Halloween in May.
You're welcome, Halloween fans. This album, Lena, she wanted to make a more personal album. She describes it as more introspective and says that a lot of the songs were inspired by dreams. She was keeping like a dream journal and kind of using that as a jumping off point.
Yeah, I can't say that I've yet really focused that much on the lyrics. I've still been adjusting to the sound, which I'm very much liking, but I haven't really honed in on lyrically what's happening in a lot of this yet.
Yeah, it can be kind of abstract,
Just like the cover.
But
Kind of witchy.
yeah, it's not one of those like they're just saying words that don't add up to anything. There's always like a message she's trying to get across, which
Yeah, it's not like
I appreciate.
Yeah, it's not like the aforementioned Bush in their lyrics.
No comment on Bush. So this album received some critical acclaim. It sold okay, but didn't sell as well as Stateless.
Yeah, it seems that may have kind of had an effect on her, as far as her outlook on her output, or continuing to press forward.
Well, from one of the interviews I was reading, she and the record label Stiff Records started kind of butting heads about what she was doing. Her touring keyboardist, the then unknown Thomas Dolby.
Oh, like She Blinded Me with Science, Thomas Dolby?
Yes. Was playing in her band as the keyboardist and wrote a song for her new toy. And there's like an EP that's on, where that's the direction Lena wanted to go in, but the record label was pushing back, and it kind of stalled her out for a couple years until she put out No Man's Land, her final record on Stiff Records, which is also a good album. I think this one lands a little better for me personally. I I feel like this one might be her peak as far as her stiff record stuff.
I remember seeing this one all the time working in a record store too. It was always just sitting in the L section of the bins.
Yeah, extremely easy to find. You know, I was going to say this earlier, but with this album being so varied in sound, I feel like there's many elements of this album where if it had gone harder in one direction, it would not be a bargain bin album. Like if it leaned a little more into the like gothic dark synth stuff, and if it'd been more of a straightforward punk record, feels like maybe the reason it's cheap is just it was too many things and people didn't know what to do with it.
Yep. Which is that's like a whole genre we do on this podcast.
Yep.
After her last album on Stiff Records, her and Les actually started a family, had some kids. During this time, the only music she did, she recorded a song for PETA with Nina Hagen, who, another, am I spoiling a recommended artist there, Sean?
I think she's just outside of the bargain bin price range for us, but that's a very, very accurate comparison.
Yeah, it's different sound, but similar energy going on with Nina.
Yeah.
But they recorded a song called Don't Kill the Animals for PETA. And that's kind of the only thing I found Lene did in the mid-'80s. Right at the end of the decade, she put out another album, March. In 2005, she put out Shadows and Dust. She appeared on a Hawkwind album in 2005 as well.
Wow.
Take Me to Your Leader. I breezed over this earlier, but she actually sings on a Residence song also back during the Stiff Records era in the early 80s.
Yeah. I was surprised to see her discography being only maybe half a dozen releases.
Yeah, 5 albums.
Yeah, not even, so 5, yeah. That kind of surprised me. I guess because I saw her records so often in the bins, I thought there were a lot of them out there. But
yeah, no, just a handful of albums. It seems like she's been performing pretty consistently from when she kind of came back in the late 80s. She's still performing today. She's got a tour, I think, in the UK. When this comes out, she'll be out in the UK performing.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that. Pretty cool. She's still out there.
Yep, so that's the rundown on Lene. Let's play another song. I want to jump to the last song on the album, maybe the most unsettling one and maybe my favorite one.
oh, no surprise there.
The Freeze. That's side B, track 5.
So that's just your typical late 70s, early 80s music inspired by some kind of like ancient marching song mixed with a little bit of post-punk energy and some bird sounds and spacey synthesizers. Kind of a recipe that everyone was following at this time, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. It could be a little bit of that Steel Eye Span Gaudete influence there.
Interesting. It comes back.
I did see that she cited the Incredible String Band as an influence.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely makes
that's
sense.
Something she found in moving to the UK.
And actually, the thing it took me back to was 2008 Bonnaroo Music Festival, and I stumbled onto this set by a guy called Gogol Bordello.
Oh, yeah. Wow,
I wondered if that's where you were going to go.
yeah, I can hear it. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I did not know him at all before, like just walking up on his set. That blew me away, by the way. Fantastic performer.
Did he invite
But-
Lene Lovich on stage for a feature?
Ooh, that would be amazing. But no. But yeah, he also mixes, Slavic melodies and sounds with more like rock music. So that's where my mind went.
That's a haunting piece. But also, there's a feeling to it. It has like an ancient element and like a sci-fi element at the same time.
Mhm.
It sort of sounds ancient and futuristic.
And it somehow works?
Yeah. Not an easy accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, I'm glad, like I said, I'm sort of vaguely familiar with her, but just for one reason or another have never really spent much dedicated time with her music.
I actually got sucked in when I was doing one of our Patreon mixes. Are those available to everyone now? I forget. What do we do with those?
Well, I think the previous mixes are available to anyone signed up over at patreon.com/I'd buy that podcast. I think we made them available to everyone who's signed up there. The mixes that we used to do for the $10 tier that is no longer a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so this for the $5 tier now.
Yeah. I guess maybe I should speak. I don't know if I made them available for you early access folks at the $1 tier. You might, if you're subscribed at that level and want to hear those mixes, you might have to
Bump it up.
up to that $5 tier.
Well, when I was working on the mix for that, I was trying to find similar artists to Marianne Faithfull as when I stumbled on Lene Lovich, and I was like, this rips in like a slightly different way, but I'd say the tone of this is very parallel to Broken English with like dark, gothy kind of thing. Obviously, Lena's not this like damaged person in the same way, and brings like a different energy, kind of lyrically and songwriting wise, but there's like a tonal parallel.
Yeah, I think that's mainly where the comparison lies because you're right. Lena also doesn't have the history that Marianne had in the public eye for a decade and a half.
Yeah.
By the time Broken English came out, so
maybe if you're going to pair them, start with Broken English and then follow it with Lene Lovich to kind of lift you out of that funk just a little bit.
Yeah.
that's probably the right order to listen to him in.
Yeah, and then when you get to the end of this album, Lena will drop you back into the funk with that song.
Just go in a loop.
Right. And then you're finally ready for Godly and Cream.
Oh. Anyways.
There's so many similarities between this album and Godly and Cream, by the way. Same time period, same kind of quirky art rock experimentations.
Is that in your recommended similar albums, Sean?
No, that's why I had to get it out now.
Okay. Well, before you
Yeah,
recommend any more.
we've never teased the recommended album section
I
so
know.
much.
It's
Yeah.
everyone's favorite.
All right. Well, what do you got, Sean? Let's not tease them any further.
Well, we've built it up so much. You'll be pleased to know that I don't have just 3 recommendations. I have 4.
Woo! Working overtime.
The first one, an album that we have not featured before, but I believe I've recommended it once or twice. Altered Images. The album is called Pinky Blue from 1982. Are either of you guys familiar with that one?
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. That's one that you always see out there. And so I know, I can envision the album cover, and I know I've listened to it, but probably not as much as I should have.
Yeah, kind of an off-kilter energy, unique vocals. It can be off-putting for people at first, but once you spend a little time with it, that's a very cool album.
I feel like I even had that digitally at some point and meant to spend more time with it. So thanks for the reminder.
Still cheap, still out there. Next one is a very early album that we featured, so I'm wondering if this was on your guys' radar as a comparison point, but Tony Basil, Word of Mouth, 1981.
I hadn't thought of that. That was so early on with guest Eric Nervous.
That's a good... Yeah, I could see where you're going with that, though. Yeah.
That's the one that secretly has members of Devo as the backing musicians, correct? If I'm remembering the details right from that long ago.
I seem to remember there was even a song penned by Devo on there.
All right, next recommendation. This is one that is a little harder to find in the States, but I think sold better and is cheaper in the UK. Another UK States crossover artist like Lene Lovich. But I'm talking about Toya and the album Sheep Farming and Barnett from 1979. How about that one? You guys know that one?
No.
Peter and I are shaking our heads at each other.
Toya is an artist that came on my radar during the pandemic because she is now married to King Crimson's Robert Fripp, and they were doing a series of covers from their house.
They do those YouTube videos. That's okay. Well, I know who she is now.
Yeah, and I was just wondering, like, who is this eccentric, wonderful person that's married to Robert Fripp and doing the singing? I found out she had a band and a whole career before that, which is a very close parallel to Lene Lovich, both in sound and style. So I think you guys would really like Toya.
I feel the need to drop in this little factoid.
Mm-hmm.
There is another much more famous cover of I Think We're Alone Now. Also recorded right at the beginning of the pandemic. Who would be corny enough to do something like that? Billy Joe Armstrong.
From Green Day?
From Green Day. Did a cover of I Think We're Alone Now right at the beginning of COVID. Because we're alone together.
Yeah. I mean, at least he...
Oh, is that the reason?
At least he didn't re-record Trey Cool's hidden track All By Myself from Dookie. I'm sure everyone remembers that hidden track.
I actually do, yes.
Yeah. You were old enough when that album came out that I'm sure you're familiar with Dookie front to back.
Yeah, I think my disdain for Green Day has more to do with my disdain for my younger self than Green Day, in case there's any Green Day fans out there.
Wow, we've really gone elsewhere. Sean, where were we? Did you have more?
Were you doing some recommended albums, Sean? Go ahead.
Well, I've obviously done 3, so there's one more. Everyone's really looking forward to it. Okay, so this one we have featured before. I thought there was some very interesting similarities, but this is not the same time period or style. Can you guys guess what it is?
You said it was the same time period? What did you say? I'm sorry.
Not the same time period, not the same genre. I think there's some definite influence going on here, and it is an album that we have covered before.
Is that Buffy St. Marie?
No, it's a pretty good guess though.
Okay.
Mm.
I'm really curious what albums you guys thought I was going to put on this list. By the way, we got to get to that too.
I will go ahead and do that once we figure this out. So you think it's just a similar feel to this, or even though it's not the same genre or time period?
Yeah, and I saw someone online claiming that this person was a big influence on Lene Lovich, but I don't know if that was truthful or just theorizing.
Well, lay it on us.
All right. Ima Sumac, Voice of the Extubé, 1950.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I could see that with some of the wild vocalizations she does.
Yeah, and like Ima Sumac's just general like intense stage presence and outlandish costumes and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when we had only done like 30 or 40 episodes and we would try to guess a similar artist to one we had previously featured, that was pretty easy then. But now that we're at 270 episodes,
Yeah.
it's harder and harder to remember everything that we've covered, even for someone like me with a pretty good memory.
Yeah.
Well, obviously we've already mentioned that it sounds like both Jeremy and I were drawing a lot of parallels to this in Marianne Faithfull's Broken English.
Mm-hmm.
But another one I thought of, it's different, but I felt like there were some similarities, and that would be Missing Persons Spring Session M.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely thought of them when I was listening to this.
Okay.
That's a really good one.
Yeah. Just my mind kept drawing some parallels, and it's probably that new wave influence, and just some of the singers' affectations.
Yeah, you have some of the affectations, but also, like in one of those interviews with Lena, she was talking about how you can insert, thoughtful, intelligent things into danceable music. I think Missing Persons also did that.
Absolutely.
Another one, you could say, Cyndi Lauper that we did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was definitely one that I'd considered putting on the list.
Yeah, she has some of those vocal affectations and a little punk energy mixed in with some experimentation, but still remaining kind of poppy and catchy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's, you can see a line through history from Lena that, you could see like Bjork, some of that stuff carries into, even as far as like Gwen Stefani.
Mm-hmm.
There's, that's like, she continued that line, Ima Sumac and Yoko Ono, to like break open all these more interesting ways to sing.
Yeah, and her and Kate Bush were starting their music careers on, at least on this level, releasing albums nationally, internationally around the same time as well.
Yeah, and Nina Hagen that we mentioned earlier was right at the same time. She brought like a more opera delivery into like punk music, which was super unique. So, yeah, a lot of experimentation in this time that I feel like a lot of people just forget even happened. So, thought it'd be a good thing to bring to y'all.
Yeah, it feels like there was more experimentation going on at the beginning of the 1980s in popular music than there was by the end of the 1980s.
Yeah.
At least on the, obviously you could always go into the underground for that, but in popular music, it really feels like the 80s sucked a lot of that out of it the further it went along.
If only there was a figure that kind of represented like mall Reagan culture, like Tiffany maybe.
Yeah.
Just kidding, Tiffany. We love you.
Wait, you're saying this is all Tiffany's fault?
This is all...
Tiffany ruined music for the 80s?
No, it's all Ronald Reagan's fault.
Oh, okay.
We don't want to get on the bad side of Tiffany.
No.
Have a podcast war here.
No, she's still out performing. I saw a video of Tiffany at SeaWorld in 2024 performing, and she killed it, honestly. And I was like, actually, hell yeah, Tiffany.
Hell yeah, Tiffany.
That's my conclusion to this episode.
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
Well, we've plugged the Patreon, but once again, we do have a $1 and $5 tier to support the podcast and get bonus content in return over at patreon.com/I'd Buy That Podcast. We also have we have quite the back catalog there. We're 270 episodes deep on the regular feed here, but I think there's well over 50 bonus episodes now available at the $5 tier.
Yep.
So check that out. Help support the podcast, and you get a whole lot more of us in return. What could be better?
What could be better?
Aside from Tiffany, do we have any final thoughts on Lene Lovich? Are we just going to get into the final selection here?
Let's get into the final selection. I chose Wonderful One, even though you guys wanted to do Angels.
Yeah, Sean and I were both repping hard for Angels. There was just something about that track that, that one really grabbed me. But I didn't hear anything on this album that was disagreeable. There wasn't anything that jumped out as like a wrong turn.
Yeah, I might agree with you that Angels might be better overall somewhat, but what I liked about Wonderful One, I thought would be a great closing song, is it's a song where if you listen to the lyrics, you might assume it's kind of a love song. And it is, but it's Lena expressing her love for music and the meaning that it gives her life. So I thought that was cool. And
it's a love you baby about music.
It's a love you baby about music, and it is itself music. And it's really good.
Well, it's good to highlight some of the deeper cuts. I think Angels is a little more of a popular song.
Yep. We're gonna end up on a deep cut today. That's side B, track 2, Wonderful One, and I'm co-host Jeremy.
And I'm co-host Peter.
And I'm co-host Sean.
Flex
your head.
A wonderful Sean.
Wonderful one, who are you, so perfect and precious to me? Beauty and body and soul, all that I wish I could be. What do you say? Time slips away. I am just floating from nowhere to nowhere, it seems. Hold back the pain. Try to explain. You are the light in the darkness, the light that I need. Life is a struggle for one, make it double and two can't survive. Lean on me, lovely, my shoulder is strong as my feeling inside.